The news hit like a thunderclap, reverberating across the globe and catching even the most seasoned industry insiders off guard. Mexico strikes back, sending shock waves through Wall Street and Detroit, shaking the very pillars of the American auto industry. Headlines blared, Mexico hits back. The story dominated every front page, every news feed, and every conversation in boardrooms and break rooms alike. U.S. auto industry in crisis. The words scrolled relentlessly across television screens, fueling a sense of panic and uncertainty. This wasn't just another trade spat. It was a direct challenge to the heart of the American economy, threatening the livelihoods of millions and the future of a proud industry. In newsrooms, analysts scrambled for answers, piecing together the implications and searching for any sign of hope or stability. In Detroit, executives rushed into emergency meetings, their faces etched with concern as they tried to assess the damage and plot a path forward. The message from Mexico City was clear: the era of one-sided pressure was over. Mexico was no longer willing to play by old rules. For years, the U.S. applied economic pressure, expecting Mexico to comply. Today, that assumption shattered, leaving negotiators stunned and scrambling for a response. Mexico's government announced sweeping measures that would upend North American trade, introducing new tariffs and regulations that threatened to grind cross-border commerce to a halt. Stocks of Ford, GM, and Stellantis plummeted, wiping out billions in market value in a matter of hours and sending investors into a frenzy. Factory workers faced sudden uncertainty, their jobs and futures hanging in the balance as production lines slowed and orders were put on hold. This wasn't a policy tweak, it was a seismic event targeting the very foundation of decades-old supply chains that had made North American manufacturing a global powerhouse. Mexico's move was precise, hitting a vulnerability that would be felt from Michigan assembly lines to California dealerships, disrupting sales, deliveries, and consumer confidence. The initial shock gave way to a grim realization: this was a crisis with no easy fix, one that would require bold action and unprecedented cooperation to resolve. The U.S. auto industry was reeling, forced to confront a suddenly uncertain future where old strategies no longer applied and new risks loomed large. The carefully balanced ecosystem of North American manufacturing was upended in an instant, with supply routes severed and production schedules thrown into chaos. The ripple effects would touch every corner of the economy and every American car buyer, as prices rose and choices dwindled on showroom floors. This was more than a headline, it was a turning point, a moment that would be studied and debated for years to come. The story was just beginning, and the world was watching, waiting to see how the giants of industry and government would respond. The auto industry, once a symbol of stability and American ingenuity, now faced its greatest test, a test of resilience, adaptability, and vision. The rules had changed overnight, leaving companies and workers scrambling to adapt to a new reality that no one had fully prepared for. The next chapter would be written in the days to come, as leaders, workers, and communities braced for the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. To truly grasp the scale of the current crisis, you first need to understand the crucial role Mexico plays in the North American auto industry. Mexico isn't just a participant, it's the engine room powering the American auto industry, the heart that keeps the wheels turning. For decades, Detroit's automotive giants have depended on sprawling Mexican plants to assemble their best-selling vehicles, from trucks to sedans. Trade agreements like NAFTA and its successor, the USMCA, have created a seamless production zone where parts are forged in Ohio, shipped to Guanajuato for assembly, and finished in Michigan before hitting the road. This intricate cross-border dance has allowed automakers to control costs, boost efficiency, and stay globally competitive, all while creating jobs on both sides of the border. Today, over 80% of vehicles manufactured in Mexico are destined for American roads, a staggering level of dependency that ties the two economies together. The U.S. relies on a steady flow of Mexican-made cars to fill dealership lots, while Mexico depends on these exports for jobs, economic growth, and vital foreign currency. This deep integration was once celebrated as a model of international cooperation, but now it's become a shared vulnerability for both nations. Any disruption in one country instantly triggers a crisis in the other, sending shock waves through the entire supply chain. Now, Mexico's latest move weaponizes this connection, threatening to bring the entire automotive machine to a standstill. The supply chains aren't just linked, they're fused together, forming a single, interdependent system that can't easily be separated. What was once a shining example of cross-border cooperation has now become a powerful point of leverage in a high-stakes economic standoff. The engine room of North America, once a symbol of progress and partnership, is now at risk of grinding to a sudden and devastating halt. Mexico's retaliation was a multi-pronged assault on the status quo, signaling a dramatic shift in its approach to international trade and economic diplomacy. The government imposed strict limits on exports of critical auto parts, wiring harnesses, transmissions, engine blocks, crippling U.S. assembly lines and sending shock waves through the North American auto industry. At the same time, Mexico slapped steep tariffs on U.S.-made vehicles sold south of the border, effectively closing off a key export market and putting pressure on American manufacturers to rethink their strategies. This pincer move squeezes U.S. automakers from both sides, production and sales, leaving them scrambling to adapt to the new reality. The USMCA's free trade principles were tossed aside, protectionism was back, and the era of open markets seemed to be fading fast. Mexico's message was unmistakable: it won't play by old rules if its interests are threatened, and it's willing to take bold action to defend its economy. The export quotas are strategic, targeting parts with no quick replacement, making it nearly impossible for U.S. companies to find alternatives in the short term. Setting up new production elsewhere would take years and billions of dollars, a daunting prospect for any company facing immediate shortages and rising costs. Tariffs are high enough to hurt but framed as temporary, leaving room for negotiation and signaling that Mexico is open to dialogue if its concerns are addressed. The intent is clear: cause pain, force talks, and bring all parties back to the negotiating table under new terms. The new rules upend business as usual, creating uncertainty for workers, executives, and investors alike. The supply chain's future now hangs in the balance.
Mexico has just sent shockwaves through the U.S. auto industry, making a bold move that could have devastating consequences
for American automakers.
For years, Mexico has been a crucial manufacturing hub for U.S. car companies,
with brands like Ford, GM, and Stellantis
relying on Mexican factories for affordable labor and efficient production. But now, Mexico has pulled the trigger on a counterstrike that could cripple the entire industry.
Leaving American automakers scrambling.
At the heart of this crisis is Mexico's new set of trade policies and
restrictions aimed at reducing foreign dependence and strengthening
the Mexican government is now limiting exports of crucial auto parts and increasing tariffs on U.S.-made vehicles, making it significantly more expensive for American car manufacturers to do business in the country. This move is a direct response to U.S. economic pressure and trade disputes and cannot be overstated. Over 80%
pressure and trade disputes, and it could completely disrupt supply chains that have been in place for decades. The impact of this decision cannot be
North American
overstated.
auto
Over 80%
the U.S. auto industry, already struggling with rising costs, supply chain shortages, and increased competition from China and Europe, now faces another major setback that could drive up car prices and slow down production. For companies like Ford, General Motors, and Tesla, this is a nightmare scenario. These automakers have invested billions of dollars into Mexican production plants, relying on the country's cost-effective labor force and strong manufacturing infrastructure. With Mexico now restricting trade and imposing new tariffs, these companies are forced to either absorb the extra costs, pass them on to consumers, or find alternative
labor force and strong manufacturing infrastructure. With Mexico now restricting trade and imposing new tariffs, these companies are
the push for electrification has already strained
pass them on to consumers or find alternative manufacturing solutions.
Mexico's latest move further complicates EV production, potentially delaying the rollout of new models and making electric cars even more expensive for American consumers. The big question now is, how will the U.S. respond? Will American automakers be forced to move production back to the U.S. at a much higher cost? Will the U.S. government step in with incentives or penalties to counter Mexico's new trade policies? Or will this trigger a new wave of negotiations between the two countries to prevent a complete collapse of the U.S.-Mexico auto trade? One thing is certain. This is a turning.
Will the U.S. government step in with incentives or penalties to counter Mexico's new trade policies, or will this trigger a new wave of
challenges? The future of car manufacturing is now more uncertain than ever. If a resolution isn't found soon, American consumers could be the ones paying the ultimate price, with fewer choices and skyrocketing vehicle costs.
Tightening its grip on production and trade, and U.S. automakers facing mounting challenges. The future of car manufacturing is now more uncertain than ever. If a resolution isn't found soon, American consumers could be the ones paying the ultimate price with fewer choices and skyrocketing vehicle costs. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.